Fiction has rules: setup, foreshadowing, payoff. The hero gets a warning before the floor collapses. Real life does not bother. It lets you build a whole identity, a whole story, then quietly edits one line off stage, and suddenly you're living in a completely different genre. This file is not about slow transformations or inspirational arcs. It's about sharp corners. People who woke up in one storyline and went to bed in another. The accountant who discovered he was royalty. The woman who learned her doctor mixed up her records. The man who saved a stranger and accidentally saved his own past. No prophecy, no soundtrack. Just reality tripping over itself. The pattern looks like this: an ordinary day, a small choice, a routine message, a throwaway coincidence. Someone boards the wrong bus, picks up the wrong phone, answers the wrong email, says yes to the wrong invitation. The moment feels trivial. Then it unfolds like a trapdoor, dropping them into a new identity, a new country, a new family, a new version of who they thought they were allowed to be. Across 45 stories, you'll see lives glitch in real time. Bureaucracies misfile existence. Algorithms reunite ghosts. A vacation detour rewrites a bloodline. A joke error in a system turns into a lifelong salary. None of it was scripted. All of it was earned the hard way, by surviving the confusion. So if you think your life is predictable, this file is your reminder. You are always one phone call, one DNA test, one misdirected message away from a completely different plot. Welcome to the Absurdist Files, where reality writes twists no writer would dare submit. Life's sudden left turns. 1. The wrong email that changed careers. In 2018, a woman in London received an email inviting her to interview for a job she'd never applied for. The company had mixed up her address with another candidate who had a similar name. She replied politely to explain the mistake, but the hiring manager, impressed by her professionalism, asked if she wanted to interview anyway. She did. She got the job. Years later, in an interview with BBC Worklife, she said the entire trajectory of her career, income, and even her eventual move to another country was the result of a single HR typo. The original applicant never learned what happened. 2. The missed flight that saved a life. In 2014, an Italian man missed Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 after getting stuck in traffic. Furious about what he thought was the worst luck of his life, he booked a different route. Hours later, news broke that MH17 had been shot down over Ukraine. He only learned the truth when relatives called him crying. He told Corriere della Sera that he couldn't process the twist. Oversleeping and a traffic jam, two things he'd cursed every day, had saved him from disaster. For months, he said every small inconvenience felt strangely protective. 3. The lost wallet that became a partnership. A New York taxi driver found a wallet containing $4,000 and returned it to its owner, a businessman who assumed it would be gone for good. Grateful, the businessman offered him a small reward. The driver refused. Weeks later, the businessman reached out again, this time offering him a job. That same taxi driver eventually became a partner in the man's company. The event was reported in multiple New York local papers, described as a real-life parable about honesty and timing. 4. The coffee spill that rewrote a future. A student in Japan spilled coffee on his laptop the night before uploading his graduate school applications. Devastated, he missed the deadline and assumed he'd ruined his chances. Forced to wait a year, he applied to a different university, one he hadn't even considered earlier. There, he met the professor who later mentored him into a groundbreaking robotics career. According to an NHK interview, he says the spill was the single dumbest, luckiest moment of his life. 5. The wrong turn that solved a crime. In 2019, a jogger in Texas took a different route because construction blocked his usual path. He noticed a suspicious bag near a creek, opened it, and found crucial evidence connected to a missing person case from 2 years prior. Police later confirmed the discovery directly solved the case. The jogger told reporters he almost ignored the bag, but turned back because something just felt off. A simple detour became the answer to a mystery dozens of investigators had struggled with. 6. The teacher who got a message from the past. A school teacher bought a second-hand desk from Craigslist. When she dismantled it for cleaning, she found a sealed letter wedged between panels, written 30 years earlier by a former student to his future self. She tracked down the man, now in his 40s, and mailed it to him. He told CBC that receiving the letter was like hearing from a ghost of who I used to be. The twist reconnected him with his estranged family and inspired him to finish a degree he'd abandoned decades earlier. 7. The lottery ticket mistake. A Canadian man grabbed the wrong type of lottery ticket after misunderstanding the clerk. He almost returned it, but decided not to bother. That accidental purchase hit a $10.9 million jackpot. In interviews with CTV News, he said the twist felt like the universe elbowing me and saying, "Relax." The clerk cried harder than he did. 8. The wallet switch at the airport. 2 travelers in Germany picked up identical wallets at airport security. Hours later, one opened his wallet and realized he didn't recognize a single card. The 2 men eventually met through airport staff. While talking, one mentioned he was a small business owner struggling to find a distributor. The other happened to work in supply logistics. Their mix-up became the beginning of a long-term business partnership that both families later joked was approved by airport destiny. 9. The car breakdown that changed a town. In 2015, a woman's car broke down in a rural Alabama town she'd never visited. While waiting for repairs, she wandered into a local diner and struck up a conversation with the elderly owner. He revealed he planned to close the diner because he had no family left. She felt compelled to help and eventually purchased it. With her marketing background, she revived the business and turned it into a community icon featured in Southern Living. All because her engine overheated at the wrong turn of the highway. 10. The wrong patient file. A man in Wales went in for a routine checkup. A nurse accidentally handed him another patient's file, revealing he supposedly had a severe illness. Terrified, he demanded full tests, only to discover he was perfectly healthy. But in the process, doctors found an unrelated but dangerous condition early enough to treat. The hospital apologized. He thanked them. BBC Wales reported the case as a fortunate error with life-saving consequences. When timing breaks the universe, 11. The text sent to the wrong person, who saved a life. In 2015, an Arizona woman named Ashley Franks accidentally texted a stranger instead of her mother, asking for advice during a severe emotional crisis. The stranger, a man named Tony Wood, gently talked her through the night and urged her to reach out for help. Days later, Tony posted the story online, not naming her, just hoping she was okay. The post went viral and ultimately reached Ashley, who replied publicly, "Your kindness kept me alive." News outlets later covered the twist as proof that a single misdirected text can be the most important message you ever send. 12. The man who missed a train and changed everything. In 2016, a British commuter named Daniel McGowan missed his usual train because he paused to help a lost tourist. Minutes later, that train derailed outside London, injuring over 100 passengers. McGowan, shaken, later learned that his usual seat was among the wreckage. He told The Guardian that the twist haunted him for months. One tiny decision, helping a stranger, split my life into the version that happened and the version that didn't. 13. The birthday invitation sent to the wrong person. In Florida, a mother accidentally texted a teenage stranger instead of her son, inviting him to a family birthday barbecue. The teen, Jamal Hinton, replied politely and joked he would still come if there was food. The grandmother hosting the party insisted he should. Jamal showed up, and that encounter grew into an annual family tradition covered by ABC News. Jamal and the family have now celebrated 8 holidays together, all because of a single mistyped number. 14. The wrong classroom that became a calling. A university freshman in South Korea entered the wrong lecture hall on his first day, too embarrassed to leave once the lecture started. The class was about architecture, a field he had never considered, but something about the lesson struck him. He switched majors that same week. A decade later, he won an International Design Award. In interviews with Yonhap News, he said his entire life branched from the moment he was too shy to stand up and exit. 15. The flight delay that led to a Nobel Prize. In the 1970s, biochemist Dr. Jack Szostak missed his flight due to a delay and had hours to kill at the airport. He struck up a conversation with another stranded passenger who turned out to be a scientist researching similar genetic mechanisms. Their conversation led to an unexpected collaboration, and decades later, both men shared the 2009 Nobel Prize in Medicine. Szostak has often said, "My Nobel began with boredom and an airport bench." 16. The dog that chose the wrong house. In Canada, a lost golden retriever repeatedly showed up at the porch of a couple who didn't know him. After the third visit, they scanned his microchip and contacted the listed owner, a woman who had recently passed away. Her family said the dog had once lived in that very house years earlier. The couple, moved by the story, adopted the dog permanently. The Toronto Star said it was a reunion orchestrated by memory, not maps. 17. The lunch cancellation that saved a fortune. A Wall Street trader had scheduled a meeting to finalize an investment. The client canceled last minute due to illness. Annoyed, the trader delayed the deal to the following week. Days later, the investment firm he intended to partner with was exposed as a massive fraud operation and collapsed. Investigators later confirmed that if the deal had gone through on the original date, his company would have lost hundreds of millions. CNBC described it as the luckiest flu in financial history. 18. The hotel mix-up that became a marriage. A British woman checking into a hotel in Spain was mistakenly given the key to a room already occupied by another guest. Embarrassed, she apologized and left quickly. Later in the lobby, the two laughed about the confusion and ended up having coffee. That coffee turned into a long conversation, then a relationship, and eventually a marriage, documented by The Independent. The bride joked, "The universe broke into the wrong room so I could meet my husband." 19. The wrong birthday cake that reunited a family. A bakery in Ohio accidentally swapped two birthday cakes, giving a woman a cake decorated with a name she didn't recognize. Curious, she posted a photo on Facebook asking if anyone was missing it. The family who received her cake returned theirs, and through that exchange, she learned the birthday child was her estranged niece, whom she hadn't seen in over 20 years due to a family rift. That accidental cake led to a reunion covered by local news, and the families remain close today. 20. The accidental interview that went viral. In 2006, the BBC mistakenly interviewed Guy Goma, a job applicant, believing he was a technology expert. Live on air, he was asked to comment on a major lawsuit, despite having zero media experience. Somehow, he answered calmly and became a global meme overnight. Millions watched him maintain composure through sheer confusion. Years later, Guy said the incident gave me confidence I never had, and he now speaks publicly about embracing unexpected moments. Identity errors, hidden histories, and reality glitches. 21. The man who found his own obituary. In 2014, an Ohio man named Jerry Arrington Googled himself out of curiosity and found a published obituary announcing his peaceful death. The obituary included his age, city, and even relatives' names. Local newspapers later revealed it was an administrative mix-up. Another man with a similar name had passed, and a clerk accidentally pulled Jerry's public records. Jerry spent weeks notifying banks, insurance companies, and the DMV that he was alive. He told reporters the worst part wasn't the bureaucratic nightmare. It was watching his friends quietly wonder if he was technically a ghost now. 22. The DNA test that collapsed two families. In 2018, the Atkinson family in Utah took home DNA kits just for fun. The results revealed their daughter wasn't biologically related to her father. Shocked, they contacted the hospital where she was born. An investigation confirmed a devastating truth. Two babies had been accidentally switched in the maternity ward 24 years earlier. The other family took the same test months later and discovered the same mismatch. CNN covered their emotional reunion. 4 parents, 2 daughters, and decades of memories suddenly rearranged. One mother said, "I didn't lose a daughter. I gained another one in the strangest way possible." 23. The wrongfully arrested doppelganger. In 2017, Richard Jones of Kansas City was arrested for a robbery he didn't commit. Witnesses insisted he was the culprit, until lawyers discovered another man who looked identical to him. Same height, same build, same skin tone, same facial hair. Even jail guards said the resemblance was uncanny. When photos of the two were shown in court side by side, everyone agreed they couldn't tell who was who. The real culprit eventually confessed, and Jones was freed after 17 years. The bizarre twist became a national discussion on eyewitness reliability. 24. The woman who learned her name wasn't hers. A woman in the UK, known publicly only as Rachel, applied for a passport renewal. The government rejected it, claiming the name didn't match any legal identity on record. After digging through childhood documents, she discovered her parents had changed her name informally when she was 5, never updating legal paperwork. For 30 years, she'd lived under a name the government considered non-existent. The Home Office required full re-registration of her identity, effectively forcing her to be born again at age 35. 25. The medical mix-up that saved a life. In 2012, a Maryland man named Tony Beverly received a hospital letter urging him to begin urgent cancer treatment. Terrified, he rushed in, only to learn the letter had been mistakenly addressed to him instead of another patient with the same name. But during the checkup, doctors discovered Tony actually had a different early-stage cancer unrelated to the mistake. Because they caught it early, treatment succeeded. The wrong diagnosis wasn't his twist. The fact that it uncovered the right one was. 26. The child who had two families without knowing. A Colombian girl, adopted by an American couple, discovered through DNA testing that she wasn't an orphan at all. Her biological family had been searching for her for over a decade. The adoption agency had falsely declared multiple children dead or abandoned. When the girl, now a teenager, met her birth family for the first time, she told NBC, "I lived one life thinking the other one didn't exist." The scandal exposed a network of fraudulent adoptions and reunited dozens of families. 27. The man who found his doppelganger in a painting. In 2016, a Canadian man visiting a European museum saw a 500-year-old portrait of a nobleman who looked exactly like him. Same nose, same jaw, same eyes, same expression. When his photo went viral, art historians confirmed the resemblance was unusually precise. Genealogists later found that the man's distant ancestors came from the same region as the noble's family. He joked in interviews that his past life apparently had better fashion taste. 28. The two strangers who shared one memory. Two Boston women attending a trauma support group realized they both remembered a specific childhood incident involving a fire alarm and a lost teddy bear, the exact same event, described identically. Investigators eventually confirmed their families had lived in the same apartment building in the early 1990s during a small electrical fire. Both were toddlers then. Their memories had blurred into shared fragments. When asked how it felt, one said, "It's like finding out your past had a witness you never knew." 29. The man with a secret brother. In 2019, a New Jersey man named Rob DeLuca took a DNA test and discovered he had a half-brother who lived 10 minutes away. Their biological father had kept a second family secret for decades. When they met, they discovered uncanny similarities. Same hobbies, same allergies, same laugh, even the same profession. "It felt like meeting an alternate version of myself," Rob told ABC News. Their father passed away years earlier, leaving the truth to be uncovered by genetics instead of confession. 30. The woman who wasn't a citizen anywhere. A woman who immigrated to Australia as a child learned, during a mortgage application, that she didn't legally exist in any country. Her birth country had lost her records. Australia had never formalized her residency due to a clerical oversight. She had gone to school, paid taxes, worked jobs, all while being a ghost citizen. It took 2 years, multiple lawyers, and parliamentary intervention before she was granted legal identity. Her quote to SBS News became iconic. "I existed to everyone except the systems designed to record existence." Chaos mode, when reality completely loses the script. 31. The man who saved a stranger, who saved him years later. In 1998, a man named John Mendez pulled a young girl from a sinking car in California after her mother lost control on a wet road. He disappeared afterward, never expecting anything in return. 15 years later, John collapsed in a grocery store from a sudden cardiac issue. A now adult woman rushed to perform CPR and called emergency services. She later recognized him during recovery as the man who saved her life years earlier. "You gave me my first chance," she told CBS News, "so I gave you your second." 2 rescues, 1 circle, and a twist only time could write. 32. The glitch that paid a man for a year. In Australia, a man named Stephen Grant mysteriously received monthly payments from a company he had never worked for. He called repeatedly to report the error, but HR insisted his employee ID existed in their system and refused to remove him without documentation he didn't have. After nearly a year of deposits, the company finally uncovered a decades-old clerical mistake that created a phantom employee. Legal experts told ABC Australia that the company had no grounds to reclaim the money. Stephen walked away with a year's salary earned by pure administrative absurdity. 33. The man who walked into the wrong wedding and met his wife. In 2013, an English traveler named Thomas Gibson entered the wrong banquet hall at a hotel in Lisbon, thinking it was a conference event. It was a wedding. Before he could leave, the bride's brothers invited him to stay, assuming he must be a friend of someone on the groom's side. Thomas ended up talking for hours with a cousin of the bride. They kept in touch, started dating long distance, and eventually married. Their story was featured in The Independent, where the bride joked, "A stranger walking into the wedding left with one of the bridesmaids. We call it destiny through confusion." 34. The resume mix-up that made a mayor. In 2018, the tiny town of Omena, Michigan, accidentally listed a local man as a mayoral candidate after mixing his resume with community volunteer applications. Residents, amused by his unintentionally blunt answers on the form, voted for him as a protest against small-town politics. He won by a landslide. The town only realized the mix-up after the election. He served a full term, insisting, "I didn't run for mayor, mayor ran into me." Local papers called it a leadership glitch gone right. 35. The lost dog that reopened a closed chapter. A woman in Minnesota found a shivering dog near her home during winter. She brought it inside and scanned its microchip. The listed owner was her ex-boyfriend, whom she had not spoken to in 7 years. When they reunited to return the dog, both apologized for past mistakes. They stayed in touch, slowly rebuilt trust, and eventually rekindled their relationship. Years later, they married. The dog served as the surprise ring bearer, proving some relationships need a 4-legged plot twist to realign. 36. The man whose identity was stolen for good deeds. In 2016, a Seattle man discovered that someone was using his name to anonymously donate thousands of dollars to charities. Alarmed, he filed a fraud report. Investigators traced the donations to a childhood friend he had once helped through homelessness. The friend said he had promised, "I'll make your name mean something good someday." After the friend passed away, the man continued donating under the same alias. He told Seattle Times that it was the strangest inheritance of identity I could have imagined. 37. The street musician who became a headliner overnight. In 2019, an American singer busking in Paris was overheard by tour managers outside a venue minutes before a scheduled concert. The headliner had suddenly fallen ill. Desperate, organizers asked the street musician to fill in. His performance went viral. Within days, he had a record deal. French outlets called it the greatest accidental audition in Parisian music history. He still carries the same guitar, claiming the scratches are where the plot twist leaked through. 38. The neighbor who predicted the future. A retired woman in Scotland jokingly told her young neighbor, "One day you'll marry my nephew. I can see it." At the time, the nephew lived abroad and neither had met it. Years later, at a family gathering, the neighbor unexpectedly ran into a man who felt strangely familiar. They talked all night. Only when the aunt saw them together did she reveal he was the nephew she had mentioned years earlier. "I didn't predict it," she told BBC. "I just recognized destiny when it walked past my fence." 39. The wrongful arrest that fixed a man's life. In 2013, a Detroit man named David Lee was mistakenly arrested due to a database error. While in custody, he met a public defender who reviewed his unrelated employment documents and realized David qualified for compensation from a long-standing workplace injury he never pursued. The lawyer helped him file the claim, which resulted in a significant payout. The arrest record was expunged, but the financial twist changed his future. Being arrested was the best and worst mistake that ever happened to me, he told local reporters. 40. The package delivered to the wrong door. A misdelivered package in Oregon contained a rare book from the 1800s. The woman who received it contacted the elderly sender, apologizing for the mix-up. They began exchanging letters about literature, then meeting for tea. Over months, their unlikely friendship grew. When the man passed away, he left her his entire collection of antique books. She told the Oregonian, it wasn't a mistake. It was an introduction written by the postal system. 41. The child saved twice. In 2005, a man rescued a 4-year-old girl from drowning at a Florida beach. A decade later, she unknowingly saved him. As a 14-year-old, she became CPR certified through a school program and later revived an older man who collapsed at the same beach. Only afterward did her mother recognize him as the man who had saved her daughter years earlier. Lifeguards verified this story, calling it one of the strangest full-circle rescues we've seen. 42. The tourist who triggered an emergency, then became a hero. A tourist visiting an ancient site in Italy pressed what he thought was an audio guide button. It triggered an evacuation alert for structural instability. Authorities cleared the building, annoyed at first, until engineers discovered a major crack in the ceiling that could have collapsed within hours. Newspapers hailed him as the visitor who saved the site by accident. He simply said he was looking for the language selection. 43. The interview with the wrong man that sparked a movement. When a journalist mistakenly interviewed a random passerby instead of a community organizer, the man's honest frustrations about inequality resonated so strongly that the interview went viral. Donations, volunteers, and attention flooded in, and the movement grew far beyond its original founders. Months later, the man admitted, "I was just buying groceries. Then I was leading a rally." The organizer laughed and said the mistake gave the cause the voice it needed. 44. The girl who found a letter from her future self, written by her mother. A teenage girl in Ireland found a time capsule letter in her attic addressed to someone with her exact name, dated 16 years before she was born. Her mother tearfully explained she had written the letter while pregnant, unsure she would survive complications. She did survive, but forgot about the letter. The daughter told RTE News, "It wasn't supernatural. It was my mother trying to love me ahead of time." A plot twist written not by fate, but by fear and hope. 45. The man who survived by oversleeping. In 2018, a Japanese office worker overslept after forgetting to charge his phone. Furious, he rushed to catch his usual train, only to miss it by seconds. That train later derailed due to equipment failure, killing and injuring multiple passengers. His employer initially reprimanded him for tardiness until news of the accident broke. He told NHK that for months afterward, he woke every morning with the same thought, "My laziness saved me. I don't know what to do with that truth." Reality has no editor. Across these first 35 twists, one pattern refuses to sit quietly. Real life is not linear. It does not reward the careful or protect the prepared. It does not pause to explain itself before it pivots. Instead, it changes direction the way weather does, suddenly, invisibly, and with a kind of indifference that feels personal only because our lives are the ones being rearranged. You've seen wrong numbers become lifelines, missed trains become survival, wrong rooms become marriages, and clerical errors turn into new identities. You've seen strangers linked by accidents, families reassembled by DNA swabs, lost pets reopen closed chapters, and glitches hand out salaries no one earned. These are twists that fiction would reject for being too convenient, yet reality uses them freely, almost playfully. But there's a deeper symmetry beneath the chaos. Most twists begin small. A pause, a spill, a delay. A mistake so minor you barely register it. That's all it takes for the universe to shuffle the deck and deal you a different hand. The people in these stories didn't chase meaning, they simply collided with it. Some were saved, some were rerouted, some were forced to confront truths they would have never chosen. And yet all of them walked away changed, not because fate is kind, but because fate is efficient. It doesn't need a plan, it only needs an opening. As we move into the final 10 stories, where coincidence gets bolder, timing grows sharper, and reality stops pretending to follow rules, remember this: your life already contains the seeds of its own plot twist. You just haven't reached the page where it reveals itself. The twist that chooses you. If there's one lesson hidden inside these 45 true twists, it's this: life is not a story you write, it's a story you're dropped into. We like to imagine we're the authors of our lives. We plan careers, chart relationships, sketch out futures in clean, predictable lines. But the universe rarely hands out straight lines. It prefers loops, collisions, misdirections, and the kind of timing that feels engineered by a writer who enjoys irony a little too much. Look back at the paths you've walked with us through this file. A man saved from death by oversleeping. A stranger becoming family because of a wrong cake. A woman who existed legally, emotionally, fully, except on paper. A DNA test that turned two households into one tangled, healing family. A rescue repaid decades later by the child who remembered it only in muscle memory. A lost dog unlocking closure. A misdelivered package becoming a friendship that outlived its sender. A missed flight drawing the thin border between life and tragedy. A glitch paying a year's salary to someone who never applied for it. These are not plot devices. They are documented facts. Evidence that the world doesn't run on fairness, logic, or narrative consistency. It runs on intersections, moments where one life quietly crashes into another, where timing stumbles, where assumption collapses, where something tiny opens into something irreversible. Twists don't arrive with warnings. They arrive disguised as inconvenience, coincidence, or error. A locked phone, a late alarm, a broken heel, a second-hand desk, a text sent to the wrong contact, a door opened by mistake, a patient file with the wrong name, a flight delayed by 3 minutes, a dog who walks to the wrong house and chooses the right humans. In fiction, these would be considered lazy writing, too convenient, too symbolic, too perfect in their symmetry. But reality has no editor to dial down the absurdity. It lets the improbable happen simply because it can. And that's the quiet truth behind these 45 stories. Life is always balancing on the edge of a twist. Not because we deserve drama, but because existence itself is unstable, carried forward by millions of decisions that collide in ways no human could predict. Some twists save you. Some break you open. Some force you to rebuild. Some simply redirect you toward the version of yourself you were supposed to meet later. So if your life feels predictable, steady, safely mapped, don't be fooled. Plot twists don't announce themselves. They wait, patiently, silently, at the edge of some ordinary moment you haven't reached yet. This has been The Absurdist, 45 craziest plot twists in real people's lives, where fate improvises, logic falters, and reality proves once again no writer would dare invent the truth.